Hey, happy Monday. I hope you're all doing well. I want to thank you all. It appears that everybody, if they do, remembering to like the videos and leaving comments, I think more people are starting to get notifications. So if you are enjoying the videos, please remember just to crush that thumbs up button. And if you want to, leave a comment because I think that's helping. But kind of some creepy news to report today around Stan Lee. Now, the covering the Stan Lee saga, so to speak, this last couple years of his life has been uh, um, a core tenet of this channel. In the beginning, when things started going wrong for him, where his blood was turning up as signing on as the ink signed to comic books, crazy stuff like that, there wasn't a lot of coverage, at least here on YouTube. There were kind of rag sites like the Hollywood Reporter and stuff like that, sort of covering the things, but um, and there wasn't a lot going on YouTube. At that time, I covered what I said looked like hostage videos, basically, where Stan Lee is speaking into a vertical cell phone, doing various things, absolving Kaya Morgan or talking about his daughter. They all seemed very scripted, very forced. It felt like somebody was holding something against him off camera. Well, it turns out, and I said that in those videos. I said this looks so weird. It looks like he's doing it against his will. Turns out not only was I correct about that, but there are actually even more videos which are going to be getting leaked this week, which is super, super creepy. I waited to try and get most of the information here. There's been a couple of articles dropped and then follow-up articles dropped ever since the original statement. So we see a far left site that I hate to use very often, but for whatever reason, sometimes they get statements. Stan Lee's statement about Kaya Morgan's hostage videos to Bleeding Cool. Bleeding Cool has been followed the unfortunate cast of Marvel Universe co-creator Stan Lee. Bleeding Cool understands that Kaya Morgan took many more videos with Stan Lee that have not been released to the public, but will be released in the coming days. TMZ is the usual source in the past, and I'm also told that the Daily Beast and Vulture may have further stories that may include these videos. In his statement, Stan Lee claims that for several months this year he was blindsided by former business partner Kaya Morgan and claims that he was lied to and that his life was taken over and controlled by Kaya Morgan. He also claims that he slowly and methodically interfered with Stan Lee's relationships with doctors, lawyers, accountants, and his daughter, J.C. Lee. Now, if you'll remember, there was actually a case where a wellness check was in progress, being completed on Stan Lee, and Kaya Morgan tried to stop it by calling the police on the police. And he even lied about them having weapons and things like that. He was actually charged for filing a false police report. That charge is still pending from what I know. The statement also lionizes that the role of the daughter, J.C. Lee, and her lawyer, Kirk Schneck, played in the new place of well-being, describing J.C. as his avenger. Especially as the statement goes on to insist that J.C. Lee has never hit, pushed, or abused me or my wife in any way or assaulted me or my wife physically or otherwise. This is Stan Lee's words. In that statement, otherwise is a lie invented by Morgan and others who have over the years attempted to exert control by distancing me from my daughter and my trusted advisors. JC says it's great to have my dad back at home. This is where he's meant to be. I feel like I've missed out on so many of these valuable days with him this year. Kaya Morgan should have known better, that I'd never let go of my father ever. My father is my family, and he's been there for me every day of my life. I'm going to be there for every day of the rest of his. Kurt next states, it's my opinion that the process by which Mr. Morgan was able to take control of Mr. Lee's life and alienate him from friends and family is a variant of the Stockholm Syndrome, a condition that causes hostages to develop a psychological alliance with and accept control by their captors. You then see an article ran on the Daily Beast talking about More craziness months after the passing of Joan. This is basically categorizing everything. Picked apart by vultures, Stan Lee's summit. And you can read this whole article. Today, Lee's hearing is almost shot, his breathing is labored, and his voice frequently fails him. He'd rather be reclining in his comfy chair, gazing out across his swimming pool at the canyon view, reminiscing about times with his beloved late wife Joan. But before I can sit with Lee, Schneck pulls me into a parlor to try and set the story he and JC want to see. Now, this is the Daily Beast interviewing Stan Lee, but getting coached by JC's lawyer. The closest thing I can say is that they, Lee and JC, have a Kennedy-esque relationship. They yell at each other sometimes, but she is the love of his life, and she has gotten a bad rap because they're four guys. All of them have been kicked out because she is essentially the only one forcing the bad guys away from him, Schneck tells me. She is the Avenger. She is the person who protects this man. She would jump across a table and stab somebody if they came after him. That's the gist of it. He's just not in great shape. You have to speak loud. Don't ask him about specific finances. Everyone in the room is manic, save for me and Lee. With Schneck frantically stage managing Lee and his daughter throughout our conversation, it feels as though I'm featuring one of the many hostage-style videos that Lee have been in, leaked by the media by bad actors with worse agendas. Being coached by Morgan off-screen, alleging that Schneck was manipulating JC and supplying her with drugs. If it weren't for the narcotics mellowing him, I'd like to believe that Lee would immediately eject himself from his recliner and demand a handler-free conservatorship. There are 5 phones recording video and audio of the chat, and JC spends half of the interview like puppet master, inches away from her father's weary visage. With all this, I'm introduced around. Glad to meet you. Do you miss the change of seasons back in your old stomping ground of Long Island? Stan Lee. Not at all. You're dyed-in-the-wool Anglo, aren't you? I've been an Anglo for 40 years now. I'm pretty used to it. I love it. Personal note, I'm sorry for all the chaos and drama in your life. If you were scripting it, it would be one thing. But all these stories and people coming and going, I'm sorry you've had to go through this. Stan says, sorry, there really isn't much drama as far as I'm concerned. We have a wonderful life. I'm pretty damn lucky. I love my daughter. I'm hoping that she loves me, and I couldn't ask for a better life. If only my wife were still with us, I don't know what all this is about. So they go on to discuss his work, cultural makeover. I'm not sure if you're aware of this or not, but there have been stories out there of at least one upcoming story with allegations of elder abuse of you on you by your daughter. Stan Lee saying, I wish that everyone would be as abusive to me as JC. JC interjects, he wishes everyone was so abusive. Stan, she's a wonderful daughter. I like her. We have occasional spats, and I have an occasional spats with everyone. I'll probably have one with you where I'll be saying, I didn't say that, but that's life. That's interesting, right? He goes on to confirm that Kea was basically forcing him to do these videos. Kea Morgan had videotape rolling on you all the time, and he's amassed a dossier that he's been disseminating. JC, he had a video and tape recorders all over the house. I've seen a video that Kea made. On it, you're telling him that Kirk is supplying drugs to JC, and that overall, Kirk is a bad influence on JC. Have you been influenced into saying those things about your daughter's attorney? What prompted that? Well, I heard that she had been saying things against her, but that doesn't surprise me because there isn't much happening in Hollywood. When you stop working for somebody, you can have unfriendly misalliance. JC saying, vindictive people. The interview continues. On the video, you say that he provided drugs to JC and he was a bad influence. Okay, Kirk, have you supplied drugs to JC? Kirk, no. Marijuana? No. Why not? JC, that's what I say. It's legal now. If I wanted to, I could drive down the street and buy it. Stan, where are you today in your relationship with Mr. Schneck? JC, Daddy, this is what he's saying. Kea, badass Kea, and terrible things about me, and also about Kirk. And he's just saying, to set things straight, do you really think Kirk is supplying with your daughter with drugs, and is this a bad person? He's not. Kirk helps me out. Stan says, my daughter has a friendship with Kirk for 30, 40 years. JC, getting annoyed. No, a few years. What are you saying 30, 40 years? I've been friends with Kirk to 4 or 5 years. We're talking about Kirk. Kaya made a videotape on which you said that Kirk was a bad influence on your daughter and he was supplying her with marijuana, which he shouldn't have. Is this something that you are unclear about? Kirk goes on, or Stan says, I must have been talking about someone else. People are always talking about people here. Maybe somebody mentioned that to me at the time, but it's something, not something I would say. JC, have you ever yelled at your dad? She admits. Okay. Which, fine. When I was younger, I've yelled at my parents. Certainly not since I've been older. The interview is creepy. But Stan is 95. I mean, of course he's going to have foggy memories about things, right? And then you have Bleeding Cool doing damage control. The Daily Beast interviews Stan Lee and JC Kirk and Schneck. Yesterday, we ran a statement, Stan Lee, Bleeding Cool, including comments from his daughter, JC. Talked about a former business partner. We knew at the time it was to preempt other media coverage. We tried to present it in context. Today, the first of those articles ran on the Daily Beast. And let's see. Ebner has seen one of the videos we were talking about where he describes one featuring Lee being coached by Morgan off screen, alleging that Schneck was manipulating JC. Stan, I wish everyone would be. So we just talked about this. So now Bleeding Cool is covering somebody else's interview. Interesting, right? The interviews are all over the place, but while it does paint those things around Stan Lee as stage managing his life and repeatedly answering for him, it may not be as damaging as his current camp may have thought. It's clear that Stan Lee does not follow every thread, every question, or have strong feelings about certain matters as his daughter does, and concerns raised are still present. But on a number of matters, Stan Lee remains as clear-headed and forthright as ever, and the Daily Beast reporter who has experienced both sides of the story at least feels comfortable with Stan Lee being comfortable. Like the oldest person I ever talked to was my grandma, and she was in her 80s. She was pretty spry. She kept her wits about her. But she would get certain details wrong all the time, and that was just being old. I do that, and I'm not even 40. So I believe now that these tapes were coached by Kaya Morgan, which is truly sinister. I'm not sure what legal recourse there is for this type of behavior, but I'm hoping that there's one, if there is an afterlife, that someone as evil as to manipulate a 90-year-old person and do the things that are alleged Kaya did to Stan Lee. There's something waiting for this guy down the road. Hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.